Joining us now, the number one pollster in America, Scott Rasmussen. Every morning, wake up, go to scottrasmussen.com. You should put that in your, favorite tagline thing, so it comes right up so you know what's going on, because he's got the finger on the pulse of America, and he's been the most accurate pollster in 2 decades. I don't even read the other polls because half of them are pushing narrative. Their questions are designed to get a result, and not Scott. He's straight up. And this segment is brought to you by the Job Creators Network. Go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. Hey, Scott, great to have you.
Always good to be with you. Happy Friday.
I know. We have so much fun on a Friday. Okay, I got to tell you this. Were your ears ringing last night? I got to tell you this. So I'm at a dinner that was hosted by Citizens for the American Republic and Steve Bannon, and we were talking about trade and tariffs. And one of the points that I was making at the dinner, we had members of Parliament from the European Union and others. We had a member of the French legislator there. We were saying that, finally we're getting the message out that people are starting to understand that tariffs are not bad for them. They're not a tax, and they're important that we be on an even playing field. And of course, for the last 40 years, the propagandists in Wall Street have told us free trade is good for you, tariffs are bad, it'll be economic Armageddon. You had a poll came out the other day, not change again. 58% of Americans now support tariffs on goods from China, unchanged from last month, even after the onslaught of the fake news media and Wall Street. Isn't that stunning from what we have seen in the past?
Well, it is stunning, and I think it's not quite the way you're representing it, in the sense that people are still concerned about the impact on the economy. But what they are saying is there are other things that matter. Many people think there might be some short-term economic harm from tariffs. They thought the same thing with Mexico. But they support the idea because right now they think we're being taken advantage of. 65% of American voters believe that China is using our free trade policies unfairly against us. And so they're saying, you know what, sometimes you got to stand up and do what's right. Let's make everybody play by the same rules, and then things will be better. And I think what's happened over time is we had this, James Carville said, it's the economy, stupid. Everything was geared around the economy. Yes, the economy is very important. 73% of voters say it is a very important issue in terms of how they'll vote. But there's more to life than just counting the change in your pocket. And for a lot of people, making sure we get a fair trade situation and don't let somebody else take advantage of us is one of them. And by the way, on the Mexico tariffs, a lot of people said, hey, we've got to stop illegal immigration. We've got to do something. And so people are putting other priorities into play in these discussions.
And what do your polls say that 34% of the tariff threat against Mexico led to a better deal? 35% disagree. So that was about split 50-50, yeah. Right?
I got to tell you, on the when you ask something about, did the Mexico tariffs help, you know what the answers are going to look like, because Republicans say, of course they helped. Donald Trump was brilliant. Democrats say, of course they didn't help. Donald Trump was an idiot. I mean, there's just this partisan response to almost everything these days. And so that reaction didn't surprise me all that much. We did find that if Mexico doesn't live up to commitments to try and help fight illegal immigration, 42% are saying, yeah, we should threaten tariffs again. You got a slight plurality on that. But it's truly amazing in today's world. If I told a Democrat the Republicans say the sky is blue, a Democrat would disagree. Mm-hmm. The reverse would be true just as well. And so when you ask about the impact of something Donald Trump has done, you get a divided nation.
We're with Scott Rasmussen of scottrasmussen.com. You got to follow him there. Go to scottrasmussen.com. He's got polls for you every day. If you follow this stuff, it's a great source of information. It's also entertaining, and I love the way his site's laid out. Go to scottrasmussen.com. Scott, another interesting poll. You got the best polling, man. Voters' definition of junk health insurance highlights desire for choice. I just read the description that I started to laugh and dug into it. You want to elaborate on that?
Sure. There's obviously healthcare is a big issue, and people are talking about a lot of different things about insurance policies, and some in Washington are saying that these less expensive policies that are maybe catastrophic care types of policies are junk insurance. So we decided, let's go out and see what voters think is defined as junk. And not surprisingly, top of the list, health insurance that doesn't pay what it promised to cover. Any consumer product that doesn't pay what it promises or doesn't provide what it promises to deliver would be considered a junk service. Next couple, though, were really interesting. 72% said junk insurance is health insurance with so much red tape that people have to wait a long time for surgery. A lot of times when we talk about keeping the cost down, it does lead to longer waiting times. 69% said health insurance that forces people to pay for coverage of medical procedures they don't need is junk. This is significant because, a founding premise of the Obamacare law was that people in Washington should decide the minimum amount of health insurance that everybody should buy, including a lot of procedures that they don't need. That's something people are uncomfortable with. We go through a list of other things, but what's missing from the list of what voters think of as junk insurance is the thing that they call it in Washington. So, again, there's this disconnect. What we find overall, people don't mind having the option to buy expensive and comprehensive insurance, but they want a lot of choices. And that's something that really needs to be brought into the health care debate. People are concerned about protecting those with pre-existing conditions. That's the number one issue in terms of all health care debate right now. But after that, 75% of voters, 3 out of 4, think they should be able to choose between a variety of health insurance plans, some that are very expensive and cover just about everything, some that are less expensive and only cover major catastrophes or certain levels of basic care. So I think this definition of junk insurance, it's a term, nobody's paying attention to it now. We're going to hear it a lot in 2020, and I think it's really important to understand what people consider junk insurance is different from the way they define it in Washington.
You're on the John Fredericks Radio Network, trucking the truth across America. You're a Godzilla of the truth. We're with Scott Rasmussen, number one pollster in America. No narrative, just honest polling. Really gives you a sense of what the country is thinking, where they're headed on different things. Must read. Go to scottrasmussen.com. This segment is brought to you by the Job Creators Network. They want you to stay informed and up to date with what is going on and the mood of the country. Go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. Scott, okay, so 7 out of 10 people like their health insurance, but now we're getting rid of their health insurance, and Bernie wants universal health insurance, and they want to take all the choices away, yet you're saying that people want choice. I mean, how does Bernie Sanders, how does this reconcile?
Well, look, if you ask people, do you like Medicare for all? Yeah, people kind of say, yeah, it sounds good. Do you want to make sure that everybody has access to health care? Yes. And a lot of what is being portrayed in terms of the slight narrative about Bernie Sanders' plan right now is it's all about giving everybody access to care. What's left out of that is that the Sanders plan would eliminate private health insurance companies, require everybody to use the national plan. Only 18% of voters support that. It's a ridiculous notion for most people to think that by eliminating your consumer choices, you're going to create a better system. People tend to believe that if you go to this system, the cost of care is going to go up, the quality of care is going to go down, and innovation will be stifled. People recognize that technology and changes that are coming in the tech world are going to have a bigger impact on health care than almost anything they do in Washington. But the only way people can access that is to have control and more choice over insurance coverage and their own medical care.
So the polling you do is inconsistent with what the Democrats' message is, that everybody said it was health care that was a driver for the Democrats to take over the House in 2018. But you look at your polling numbers, and they don't jive. That's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean,
okay. Well, the healthcare issue that drove the Democrats absolutely did drive Democrats' success in 2018, and it was the fear that Congress was going to take away protection for pre-existing conditions. Look, Americans have a default position. No matter how bad something is, Congress could always make it worse.
Right.
So the minute that doubt was raised, people began to say, Republicans aren't going to protect the people who need it the most. That is an issue for Republicans. If they cannot address the pre-existing condition issue, they will lose the health care debate again. If the Republicans can resolve that, then it's the Democrats who are in trouble on the issue, because every other bit of data shows people, again, they want more control. They want more choice in their health care options. 2 out of 3 workers say if they had the chance, they would choose to have less health insurance coverage, less comprehensive coverage, and a bigger paycheck. People want to make that choice on their own, though. They don't want somebody in Washington making it for them.
Absolutely. I see, that makes sense. So what you're saying is what Republicans have to do is 2 things: protect pre-existing conditions, which is very popular.
Yep.
And here's the thing, Scott Rasmussen. Almost everybody in their family or their immediate circle network has somebody in that situation. I do, right? I have a daughter that's in that situation. Everybody wants that, but they also want choice. So give them the ability to do telemedicine, give them the ability to buy across state lines, break the barriers down, but you have to find a way to protect pre-existing conditions, which is expensive because obviously that's being subsidized. Everybody understands that. If you just know Economics 101, pre-existing conditions are being subsidized by the healthy people, all right? Because that's why before Obamacare, insurance companies would kick you out if you had a pre-existing condition because they couldn't cost it out. Simple as that.
Right. Look, this is a matter of fairness for most people, and it's something that does strike close to home. And it strikes close to home at every level. People knowing someone with pre-existing conditions, knowing someone who has had to fight with their insurance company over what should be acceptable care. Those are legitimate concerns, and they need to be raised. But the one issue that really hurts Republicans at this point in time is the pre-existing conditions issue. They've got to address that. And then they have to begin to move forward and say the next thing we have to do is shift power from Washington to individuals, give people choice about their own health care.
We're with Scott Rasmussen, #1 pollster in the United States. This segment brought to you by the Job Creators Network. You can go to jobcreatorsnetwork.com. Scott, I've only got a minute. Unbelievable. I mean, a new poll comes out that you do. Support for impeaching the president goes up 45% in favor. We have this unbelievable economy. He's done nothing wrong, and you got almost half of Americans want to impeach the guy. What the hell's the deal with that?
It's been in that range. It's been around 40% for most of his presidency. About a third of the country was ready to impeach the president before he took office. It's grown up a little bit since. The numbers have gone up a little since then. When the special counsel report was first submitted, support declined a bit for impeachment, and things began to look a little better for the president, like he might get some breathing room. But now, since Robert Mueller made that public comment, had that press conference, we've found support inching up from the 41% level to 43, 44, 45. We're going to keep tracking this every week, see what the public mood is. But the base here, no matter how you look at it, there's about a third of the country that believes that Donald Trump was not legitimately elected. It was the Russians. It was something else. They believe that Hillary Clinton should be president, and nothing is going to change that perspective. So there's always going to be a base for support for impeachment.
That's going to be the final word, except, Scott, can you tease me a little bit? What is your number of the day today? Come on,
our
Scott.
number of the day actually talks about the greatest holiday that we're celebrating today, Flag Day.
I know,
it began
Flag Day.
Not in Congress, but 134 years ago today, a Wisconsin school teacher started Flag Day in his school. It spread to New York City. It took the government nearly a century to catch up and formalize it. But like a lot of things, Flag Day began 134 years ago today. It began in the culture, not in Washington.
So that's your number, 134, Flag Day. Scott Rasmussen, go to scottrasmussen.com. Thanks for joining us. And this segment brought to you by the Job Creators Network.